Welcome back. So today is the day we're going to be putting the transmission back into the car. So there's a couple things I had to do to get the trans ready before we install it. There is a breather tube that needs to be made and installed. The trans did not come with that. There's also the lower boot for the shifter that I need to install. I'm going to drain the fluid out of it, reseal the drain plug, and also we're going to talk about the fluid that goes in the Zia transmission. So when I was researching what fluid to go into it, it's not like a normal 4-speed that would take like a 75, 80 weight. This trans from the factory came with a 5W30 synchro mesh from GM, or you could put in a 10W60 engine oil from BMW. So they're like the recommended ones. So going down the rabbit hole, what the internet provides of all this information about oils that people run in there, it was all over the place. So I kind of went back to, you know, what it came with originally. So I ended up going with a 5W30 AMSOIL synchro mesh, like that. This runs about like $20 a quart, and you need 2.2 quarts to put into the transmission. So 2, and you have to buy 3. So that's 60 plus shipping right out of the gate. So that, or you can order the BMW oil, which is a 10W60. I've heard people run 5W30 engine oil, so something thinner like that. So obviously everybody has an opinion on it, so you can kind of pick whatever is right for you. I just went and got this AMSOIL 5W30. I just feel like that's probably the most accurate thing to what it came with from the factory. This trans got like 70,000 miles on it, so I just felt like that's probably the perfect, having the synchro mesh. But it's my opinion, you're welcome to yours. So we're gonna go ahead and prep the trans and hang it in the car. All right, so I'm gonna just start draining this now. So I just want to show you, this is the fill and this is the drain, obviously is at the bottom. So you're gonna need a big old 17mm socket like this. So what I would do, if you're just servicing your trans, always make sure that your fill comes out first before you drain it, just so you don't get stuck, because these things are in there really, really tight. I had already broken free these when I got it just to check it out. So I'm going to take this one out, and then we're gonna put some pipe sealer over this, and then tighten it back in, and then we'll get it up on the bench. Okay, now it's drained. I'm gonna put the drain plug back in, and I'm just gonna put a little bit of this pipe thread sealant in here. You could use like Teflon tape if you have it too, which will work just fine. Didn't notice that the shifter itself, this is the part that you're going to see in the car, had some nicks and stuff in it, so I sanded it down and then I just kind of cleaned it off. So I'm just going to spray it with some black paint so it looks a little nicer in the car. Okay, so this is where the breather hose goes, and it usually comes up like this here. This one was missing it, obviously, and I couldn't really source one, so I'm just gonna make one up myself. I have a piece of 3/8 fuel line here. I ended up buying this banjo fitting, so you can see like that. So I will use that in here, and I also bought this little breather cap, which I'll put on the other end of the hose. So I'm gonna put the banjo fitting in first. Has the copper washer fitting, another copper washer. Run this down like that. Hose clamp. that. Another hose clamp up here. Breather. And then just snug it all down here. And that'll do the job. Okay, now I'm going to address this lower boot here. So I got a brand new one, and you can see there are these studs sticking up, and this goes through here like this. Slide that all the way down, and then it has this little plate at the bottom where the studs stick up. So I'm pretty sure there's a metal piece that's supposed to go around here. I did a little bit of research, but I can't find it anywhere. So I'm just going to use washers and then another set of nuts that I have to hold this down in place. So one good thing about having this out on the bench, I'm gonna fill it here. Normally you would have it filled underneath the car, you'd have a tube and you have to kind of pump it up into the fill plug on the side of the trans here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start filling this up. Okay, now I'm gonna clean up the spline. I can see that there's some like gummed up leftover grease on there. So I just have a little wire brush. I'm going to clean up the splines real good and then just brake clean everything off. Once you have the splines cleaned off, I'm going to use some of this spline grease they gave me with the clutch kit, and I'm just going to put a very light coat around the input shaft here on these splines, and when I'm done I'm going to just take a rag and go like this to get any excess off, just so nothing kicks up into the clutch area. All right, so it's all ready to go in. Spline's lubed, the trans filled, the breather's there, and then the shifter lower boot is installed. So I got it on a dolly here. I'm just gonna roll it underneath the car. And this is definitely a two-person job to lift that thing up there and line it in place. So make sure you have an extra set of hands when you're doing it. Okay, so just as everything was going really smooth, I hit my first snag of the project. So my friend and I were holding up the trans, trying to stab it in, and the input shaft just kept getting hit and not allowing it to move forward. I ended up finding that the throwout bearing in the car, which is for the blue tag, is just too small for the collar that goes around the input shaft, which I'll show you here in a minute. So it's actually hitting that and not allowing it to go through. So the black tags are supposed to have the bigger collar, and the blue tags are supposed to have a smaller one. So for whatever reason, my blue tag has a bigger collar on it, and I have to order a new throwout bearing now. So I pretty much have to stop right now, order a new throwout bearing, and hopefully that'll do the trick so I can get this thing back in the car. So I just want to show you real quick what I was talking about. Okay, so this collar piece here, and this is the old throwout bearing, which I probably should have checked, but I just assumed that since it was a 95 and it was a blue tag, it'd be fine. So as I'm trying to slide this thing in here, it's getting stuck right like there. So I actually need the bigger diameter throwout bearing, I'm assuming from a black tag. So I found one, I ordered it, so we'll see when it gets in. All right, so that's it for now. So if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button and we'll get to it next week.